if you like to hatch Corydora eggs, pleco eggs, or anything else that ever needs a device like an egg tumbler, this next one might be the one you need to pay attention to. Hello everyone, this is Bentley, and today we're going to talk about kind of a new kid on the block, but not exactly, and that's the ZET65, the Ziss Egg Tumbler. It's a terrible name, by the way. I think it was like Ziss Egg Tumbler 65, but it's a bad name. Ziss, come on, guys. But anyway, let's talk about this guy. There's several pros, several cons. I want to cover both, but I've been using this guy for a few months. I've had 3 spawns of the Wabenmuster plecos go through this. I have one pleco that kicks his eggs out reliably, and the other who I think is the only one to hatch some in his cave. I'm not sure, but I've had 3 clutches of eggs I've had to deal with, and babies that weren't in a clutch of eggs. So I needed this thing. Let's talk about the goods, the bads. Let's look at the actual device instead of this empty box, which, if you want some fun, you can see the top of the lid that Papalimo chewed off, my beloved corgi. So let's start talking about the pros of the tumbler. And you're going to have to forgive me, I don't have a completely clean one. I literally pulled this thing out of the tank because I just finally got a batch of babies out, so it's a little mucky. I actually use this thing. It's not like just some piece I have for review. So first off, you get the base tumbler. It's this nice cup shape. It has this piece here that is your airflow with a little nice sponge on top, and you can see, even though mine's kind of grody, but it's a nice coarse sponge with a hole for its air tube. Kind of 3-piece air system here, which goes on the top. It comes with a little tube, an air valve, a Ziss air stone, and all you do is plug this guy in. It's got a nice seal built into it. You can see these like red seals here. There's another one right there. You just plug it with the air stone in, gives you airflow. What it does is basically it's going to pull its water flow through the sponge here, down that little funnel in the center, and then it's going to splash around and come out up this way through where the air is actually doing all the work, right? So if we look at the top here from this perspective, I know it's kind of grody, but plecos, what do? Everything's funneling back up here, so it's moving around the sidewalls, coming up this way where the air is, and then pushing out our top piece here. Probably most genius thing about this, other than it has a nice, like, set bottom. You actually see water left in it. It's kind of disgusting. I'm so sorry. But it has feet, but also there's the stick-on base. So with the suction cup base, right, you have this. It's 4 suction cups, very common for Ziss. You're going to have this plate here, and what I want to point out that you can see here is that there's an opening here, and then on the back part of the tumbler, you've got this hook. So it literally just slides in and slides out. You can move the tumbler, clean the tumbler, do whatever you need to do, and the suction cups stay in place on their own on this plate. Set that back down. Okay, and then very simply, it's like real common like most suction cups, right? It's got a tight end, it's got the big open side, you slide them over to the side into the tight portion, sticks them in place. The Ziss suction cups are actually really nice, other than some discoloration, which is super common in a clear plastic. They are still very pliable after several months of work, and I've heard from other people who've had them a lot longer, guys like Master Breeder Dean, for example, where they stay nice and pliable for a long time. They're actually a nice suction cup. So that's a plus. This mounting system is genius, because you can just set it however you want. Aquarium Co-Op is a good video if you want to learn how to like set this thing up. I don't want to go over that, but basically you can set it at whatever height you want, and then just plunk your tumbler in. Really, really smart design. You pay for that design a little bit, though. So the retail on this thing is $29.99 through Aquarium Co-Op. And I have seen a very suspicious, like, Chinese knockoff on Amazon where they actually charge you $34.99. So don't buy that one. It costs more money. Buy the actual Ziss one. And to be clear, I paid all my own money for this. I'm wearing the Aquarium Co-Op hat kind of randomly, actually, but I'll give them a little love because they've got a good price on this product. It's where I bought it from. But there's no sponsorship. I'm not being paid. I wasn't provided any product. The only thing I did get is I have a Greater Seattle Aquarium Society Club discount at the time that I purchased this. That gave me a small discount at Aquarium Co-Op that I get all the time whenever I buy there, because I'm a member of the Greater Seattle Aquarium Society, and they're a sponsor store, so they give us a little bit of love. That's it. Like, it's all my money. It's sponsored by me, Bentley, and my job. So let's go back to that positive, right? So you've got it gives you a nice little piece of flexible air tubing. Everything here, despite not being perfectly clean, is in the kit. With this little air valve to control, it gives you the Ziss Airstone, which I love the Ziss Airstones. I don't think it warrants a full video, but I'm going to say, of the no-clog Airstones I have tried, it's probably my favorite. The only thing that, and it's a problem in a lot of the no-clog Airstones, is just, it's hard to give them enough weight naturally in the Airstone itself to hold themselves down. And often, like, the small suction cups that are designed to hold airline aren't very powerful compared to fighting the power of air moving water. They get loose all the time. There's some tricks to stop that. Usually it involves, like, tying a washer around this. But in this case, this is just coming out of my tank, going to an air pump, and I don't care. One of the biggest positives about the airflow in this compared to most tumblers and why I like it, most tumblers are going to bring their airflow from the bottom, so water's just coming kind of straight up and out, right? Or at least in most of the designs I've seen. What I like about this is because it comes through that little funnel, and if you adjust it correctly, you get this nice gentle flow that causes this motion, right? It goes down into this nice circular bottom. It's not flat, unlike a lot of egg tumblers that are flat, so that the eggs are just bouncing up and down. So there's this circular bit that lets them kind of gently tumble around if you set your air correctly. I really like this, because if you're paranoid about your eggs, for any way, shape, or form, it just is kind of an extra security layer. But more importantly, what it helps do is the eggs tend to kind of come over here instead of right under the general downspout. They come out here to the flow where it starts to release, and they just kind of lightly float almost the whole time, barely really touching the sides unless they're a very light egg and not a very large egg. My Wabenmuster eggs aren't super huge, so they kind of mine sit right here along this edge, and I like that. It's really great when it comes to ensuring that the eggs are getting a really gentle tumble, and despite the fact that one of the negatives we'll talk about in a second, as you can see in some of this water in here, you can get a bit of detritus in here. I have yet to lose a single egg from fungus in this tumbler. So I've had 3 batches of Wabenmuster babies, all about 20 to 30 fish a piece. Go through this, 0 losses, all the way through their yolk sac being completely gone. And that's a big thing for me. I want to make sure that I lose a minimal number of fish, because no one really likes losing their baby fish, right? So I think part of that has to do with the design of this tumbler and the way that the water flows, your ability to definitely control it here. The Ziss Airstone gives a nice, good flow of air power. It gives those smaller, finer bubbles, which I really appreciate. It also doesn't really splash the top of my water horribly. And like I said, Aquarium Co-Op has a great video showing how to set this up and everything. I don't really need to show that part. I just want to review the product itself. But let's talk about a couple negatives, because there are a few. Number one's that price, right? Lots of egg tumblers, like your Sunseal and all those Chinese imported stuff on Amazon you can find, are going to cost you anywhere between $10 and $15. This is $30. It's a little expensive, but this is a good, tough plastic. It's a relatively thick plastic. So let me pull the lid off again, but you can just see there, this is like a drinking cup as far as thickness of plastic. It's built to be a little more durable. That's nice. One of the other downsides, and I vaguely mentioned this, but the little sponge, I want to pull it out, that's why I'm looking down. The little sponge here is a coarser sponge, very similar in porosity, if you will. I know that that sounds like a made-up word, but I promise it's actually kind of real. To the Aquarium Co-Op sponge filters, where it's a coarse sponge. And that is good because it's not likely to clog up. The downside is that you're more likely to get a lot of fine detritus if, say you have a pleco colony. Plecos make a lot of gunk. Fine detritus has got a good chance of making its way in here. It's the only real downside I have seen to this particular tumbler. However, if you play with your flow carefully enough, that detritus is not really going to affect your eggs, and a small amount of detritus can be helpful for the first day or so, where those babies will feed on a lot of that little like bacteria and stuff that grows inside them. In the case of plecos especially, because plecos don't care, man. They're just looking for a bite to eat. So if you're somebody like me where you're working 10, 12 hours a day, sometimes even more, and you might not be watching your pleco egg yolk sacs perfectly every single day, multiple times a day, you can miss a day or two. I did on my last batch with those plecos in here, and as long as your tank is seasoned, you're probably going to have some biofilm in here, and that little bit of detritus actually just acts as a food source. So it's kind of a negative. But if you want it to be super clean all the time, there's a risk that it won't be. So just keep that in mind. To me, that's like the major downside. The only like other downside, I'm going to use this in big quotation marks, to me, is that because of the design, it doesn't fit super well in shallow tanks. Now, I say that in that I've been keeping this in a 30 breeder. So we're already talking about a fairly short tank to begin with, similar to like a 10 gallon in height. Slightly taller, if I look. Yeah, slightly taller, not much. But, I basically have to have this thing almost all the way to the bottom in order to keep this at my water level. And then very often with evaporation, if you're open-topped on a pleco tank, like mine is, you're going to deal with the water line getting low, and eventually you lose that little bit of suction. All this means is just keep your water line high, top off more often, and you're fine. It's a few extra minutes of maintenance, or in a taller tank, like a 40 breeder or something like that, you just set it a little bit lower below the line, and it's never going to be an issue. That is literally like, I am stretching for a gripe on this thing. I actually really love this thing. Even when it's like yuck foo and disgusting, it performs fantastically. I think that like the difference in price compared to a cheap egg tumbler, I'll pay this every time because I've had such good success. And you guys know that like I'm not like a pleco guru, right? The Wabenmusters are the first Ancistrus species I've very actively tried to breed. And had multiple batches of dealing with. It's the first time I've ever had the necessity to get an egg tumbler. Now, I've watched plenty of videos on egg tumblers, and I've seen other people talk about them, and I've looked at the designs, and I've looked at the mechanics. So, I have a base, right? But I went straight to this thing for a reason. And that is simple. It's not just because it's the one Aquarium Co-Op carried, although that was handy, right? I really like this nice little sponge built-in design. I love the way that this is designed so that how it routes the airflow and the water flow around your eggs. I love this design. I honestly think I could probably find a way to hatch rainbow eggs out of this, and those are notoriously fragile. They wouldn't do as well as plecos do just because they need food immediately, but I'm just saying, like, as an experiment, I could probably find a way. Beyond that, like, really, I think this is straightforward. If you're willing to spend a little bit of extra money, basically double the cost of a cheap egg tumbler, and you don't want to DIY something, and you want something that's going to last you, be easy to pull in and out of a tank, has good airflow, has a little bit of filtration built into it, and just in general is a really nice piece of equipment, this is your guy. I'm really serious about that. I've been... How do I put this? I've been surprisingly happy with a lot of the quality of Ziss products. And you guys know, like, I personally am not a big fan of the Ziss BioBubble media reactor, right? And it's just, I think that fluid bed filters need to be big ones as opposed to little internal ones. But the quality that I've seen out of all the products, the brine hatchery, the tumbler, and even the BioBubble that I don't really like, they're also really nicely built. And they are, in general, a good piece of kit. And it's just like, do you feel the positives outweigh the negatives? And in this case, like 100% to me. I'm very happy to pay the $30 for one of these. I know that I've got a really nice tumbler that's going to last me a long time, has very good flow, and can easily do what I need it to do, and I can move it at will. I think that was the best part. Like, just pulling this thing off of its little holder and not having to like fuss with it like some of the other tumblers, and just being able to like open the top and slowly empty and add water and like like do this method and slush my baby plecos out into the wild and free. It was so user friendly. That's the biggest thing for me. The setup is super simple. It's not too many pieces. It comes easily packaged. There's some nice instructions. It's very fast setup. It's very efficient. I like it a lot. I don't know how to say much more than that. I like it a lot. With that being said, have you guys tried this thing? Do you have one? Do you not need one? Maybe you're thinking to yourself, like, actually, I kind of need an egg tumbler. I keep having some trouble with fungus on certain eggs. Maybe this is the one to try out. I'd love to hear your comments down below. For those of you who have tried the Ziss, do you feel that my positive and negatives are accurate? Do you think I'm missing something? Let me know in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a little thumbs up, give it a like. That helps with the magic YouTube algorithms. Especially if you like, comment, all the usual YouTube beggar nonsense. If you're not a subscriber, I do all sorts of product reviews. I usually test most of my products for between 2 and 3 months at a minimum, sometimes significantly longer. It just depends on what the product is. If you enjoy stuff like that, and also all sorts of tips and tricks, live streams every week, consider subscribing. Hit that little notification bell so you don't miss anything whatsoever. And I really want to know, do you guys like this thing? I love this tumbler now that I've used it for a few months. At first I was hesitant because I was just like, man, can a tumbler really be worth 2 to 3 times the price of what I see on eBay and Amazon and all that? And I put this thing together and I had put one batch of eggs in it, and I was just like, yep, yeah, it's worth it. It's just worth it. My instinct was kind of right in that, I felt like the way it was engineered was just going to be exactly what I needed, and it's proven itself hands down so far. Now, maybe I'm just lucky, right? Maybe I've just been really lucky with my plecos, but I've had plenty of catastrophe with eggs in the past, so not having any so far with my plecos has definitely made me feel pretty good about stuff. Now, if for some reason you think that no one ever needs an egg tumbler, why are you doing videos like this? How dare you buy a product, test it for 3 months, and then come to us and tell us why you like it? You can hit the thumbs down. I'll understand. Just make sure you hit it twice so that I know you really can't stand this stuff. And we'll be good. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. And stay awesome.